Today's story, which admittedly is a little bit on the short side, but it's a good one, trust me, is about how enemies don't just stop being enemies because they die. According to the ancient Japanese, animosity could transcend the veil and lead to not just humans, but all living things having serious beef with each other despite no immediately apparent reasons for it. And that animosity could even lead to very terrible consequences, as in the case of this tale. Yokoso owashitare, welcome back to another ancient Japanese folktale, and if you like Japanese history, culture, and folklore, or even just storytelling in general, please give the video a like, and please subscribe because I try to put out at least one new story a week. And with all of that out of the way, let's hear a tale. Once upon a time, ima wa mukashi. In an unknown district, in an unknown province, unknown because these 1,000-year-old folktales unfortunately didn't make it to us unscathed, there was a man. Now, from the title of the story, we know that this man lived somewhere east of the capital, but where exactly he lived, again, we don't know. But what's important is that this man had in his service a young girl between 12 and 13 years old. There was nothing particularly special about this girl, but she was reliable enough help around the place that she had a stable job and she was considered part of the group, part of the family. Now, there was also in this same village or neighborhood another man who had at his house a white dog. Again, there was nothing particularly noteworthy about this dog. It wasn't a good hunter, or it wasn't used for some very important job. It was just kind of there, doing whatever dogs in ancient Japan did. Now, again, neither this girl nor this dog by themselves were particularly unusual. But what was unusual is that whenever this dog happened to see this servant girl, he would fly into a fit of savage barking and snarling. And if there was nothing keeping him contained, he would tear off after this girl and violently try to tear her to pieces. And if there was something holding him back, he would do everything he could to get out of his restraints and dispatch this girl. But this wasn't a one-sided hatred, because the girl, likewise, whenever she laid eyes on this dog, she would immediately look around for some kind of hard object, a stick, a rock, anything, and do everything in her power to beat the living crap out of this dog. And she too had to be restrained by the other people of the village. Clearly, for some unknown reason, this girl and this dog absolutely despised each other as the vilest of enemies. The people of the village recognized that this was not normal, but everyone just kind of made do and went about their lives making sure that this dog and this girl didn't end up offing each other when they weren't looking. Whatever they did though, they made it work, and life in this village was, for the most part, uneventful and peaceful. But one day, this girl came down with some unknown sickness. It wasn't too bad at first, maybe just your average cold symptoms, but over the next few days her condition worsened, and fearing that it might be contagious, the man of the house decided to move this girl to a more secluded location to keep her sickness from spreading and allow her to recover in peace. When this man told the girl his plans to move her, her eyes, however, widened, and her breathing picked up. And through her sickness she said, "If you take me somewhere with no one else around, then that dog is 100% going to come find me and rip me to shreds. Even when I'm healthy, he comes to attack me, and it's all I can do to keep him off of me. If he finds me while I'm bedridden, there's no way I'll survive. So please, make sure you put me somewhere this dog won't be able to find me." The boss, who was a very reasonable man, and knew just like everybody else in the village the whole situation between this dog and this girl, had no desire to see her suffer any more than she already was suffering. And he decided that the girl made some very good points. And so, he did just as the girl requested, and had her moved to a small building relatively far away. He further had this place done up properly to house her until she got better, and made sure to do everything, moving her, making sure everything was taken care of, and setting the place up as secretly as possible. At least as secretly as possible when in the vicinity of this white dog. Now, when this girl was finally installed properly and comfortably, and everything was given a once-over to make sure it was okay, the man told her, "I'll send someone to check on you twice a day." And then, with everything else being taken care of, he went back to the house, leaving this girl all alone in this small house in the middle of nowhere. Now the next day, the man of the house and the people who worked there all watched the neighbor's dog very, very closely to see if it had caught wind of their moving this girl. To their relief, however, he seemed to take absolutely no notice of any change, and after a few hours of periodic checking, everybody relaxed and went about their business as usual, making sure to take extra care to avoid the dog sight when they had someone go check on the girl. The rest of the day passed with nothing noteworthy, and the household all went to sleep that night, confident that they had outsmarted this dog. That is, until the next morning. After everyone had gotten up and gone about their business as usual for a bit, someone happened to look over into the neighbor's yard and noticed that the dog was gone. Panicked, this guy who saw this passed on the news to everybody else. And as soon as the news made it to the head of the house, he immediately sent out a group of people to go confirm that the dog was indeed gone. Sure enough, it was nowhere to be seen. It hadn't just stepped inside for a little bit, it was gone. And once this was confirmed, the group immediately then set out to go check on the girl, fearing that the dog had somehow actually figured out their scheme and gone to settle the score. And so, when the servants finally arrived and they peered into the building, what they saw horrified them. Both the dog and the girl were lying motionless on the floor next to each other, both of them covered in red. Upon moving a little closer and inspecting them, it was clear that they were both gone. They had both passed on. The girl, of course, had bite marks all over her and had been torn up ferociously. But what was even crazier is that looking at the dog's body, it too was torn up and covered in bite marks. Human bite marks. Sure enough, they looked at the girl's mouth and it was covered in red as well, but not because it was torn up like the rest of her, but from the fatal wounds that she had inflicted on the dog with her own teeth. A short time later, both the head of the house and the owner of this dog arrived on the scene and saw the carnage for themselves. Both of them could hardly believe what had happened, but other than being astounded, the text doesn't mention them doing anything further and ends the story there. You will have to fill in the blanks with what you think happened afterward. Tell me in the comments, by the way. And thus is it said, all the people of the village began to believe that this girl and this dog had been mortal enemies in a previous life. And to continue on with the story from last week's, basically this whole section of stories is again all about karma, the karmic ties that bind us, the karmic results of your actions of when you go out and do X, Y, or Z, and how they can manifest themselves in really strange ways. Basically, the ancient Japanese, whenever they saw something that was really weird and didn't seem to make a lot of sense and was out of the ordinary, they always attributed it to some kind of pre-karmic coincidence, or maybe not coincidence, but some result of some previous karma in a past life. And so, this girl passing on by biting this dog to death and they messing each other up that way. That clearly was not something that you saw every day and had to have been some kind of weird, quasi-magical, karmic connection from a previous life. But again, yes, this story is very short, but it is rather fascinating, and it still does give us a fascinating glimpse into the lives and the morals and the thought processes of the ancient Japanese, how they're similar, how we're different. I'm sure if we saw a similar story, we would also be like, oh my gosh, and we would consider that something worthy to write down, and would probably make the news stories all over the place. It's just the same, because, I like dogs and I like people, and so the idea that they hate each other and they're going to destroy each other is something that I'm not particularly fond of, but the world's not a happy place all the time. But I am going to end it there, so if you enjoyed the story, please give the video a like, please subscribe to the channel, because again, I do my best to at least put out one new Tales video. I also do my best to put out videos talking about the classical Japanese that occurs in games and possibly anime as well. I'm trying to bridge the gap between traditional Japanese culture and pop culture and showing you all the ways in which they influence each other, or rather, the traditional Japanese culture influences regular culture. Modern culture, pop culture. And if you've been watching all the way up to the end here, I thank you sincerely. Ito ureshiu koso haberikere. And hopefully we will see you next week for the next story, which is a similar kind of a thing. It's a bit of a tragedy. Some things happen. It's not a happy story per se, although it does end relatively well, but it is also another cautionary tale about why you should never follow random people you just met into the woods after they tell you that they're going to do some sort of magical rituals to grant you happiness and success and wealth and all of that stuff. So, this one's almost a true crime story as well. Please look forward to that. Anyways, thank you so much, guys. We'll see you later. Goodbye.